It's UFC 257. The combat sports leader returns to Fight Island with an epic headline. The biggest star in the sport, the notorious Conor McGregor, will rematch Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Since his move to 155 pounds, Dustin Poirier has built an enviable resume.
Dustin Poirier with the finish!
And after emerging victorious in a 2020 candidate for Fight of the Year against fellow contender Dan Hooker, he'll be looking to solidify his position at the top of the division as the #1 contender. Standing in his way, however, is the returning former lightweight world champion Conor McGregor. The biggest star in the sport is back and better than ever. And after making short work of veteran Donald Cowboy Cerrone at UFC 246, he once again has his sights set on the UFC lightweight title.
It's my name in history one more time.
Will the Diamonds shine on Fight Island, or will the notorious one reign supreme once more? Hello and welcome along to the very first edition of UFC Inside the Octagon for the year 2021. John Gooden alongside Dan Hardy. And Dan, this is a big one. The combat sports leader has launched into the year 2021 and they've gone big style. Back to Fight Island. It's the return of the biggest star in mixed martial arts, Conor McGregor. He's facing off with one of the most popular fighters on the planet in Dustin Poirier. And of course, it's a rematch, Poirier versus McGregor 2. What say you, Dan Hardy?
I'm very excited, John Gooden. The Fight Island 3 2021's here. We're kicking off with McGregor. And it's the fight that I wanted to see at 155. You know, the fact that this is 6 years since the last time they faced one another. Poirier has developed into a very formidable 155er. McGregor's still the biggest star in the sport, coming back down into a rematch to try and put himself into this division in a relevant position now that belt's floating around. I mean, it's the fight everybody wants to see in this division. And the fact that we're kicking off 2021, the first pay-per-view with this, these ripples are gonna continue on through the rest of the year, no doubt.
And I love the fact that this was sort of born out of a charity challenge between the two fighters as well. They both do great work in their respective communities. So that adds something very nice and very special as well. All right, Dan, let's go over to the facts and the stats as we always do then. And we have the former champ against the former interim champ who has challenged for that undisputed title as well. And starting at the very top there, we have two fighters in their prime. McGregor is 32, Poirier is 31. But I wanted you to give us some analysis on the size here, because they're the same height. The reach is an inch in favour of McGregor. But the way he fights, is that significant at all?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, obviously it is only an inch on a tape measure, but in a fighting style, it makes a huge difference, because you've got to think how McGregor utilises that reach. You know, he stands long, he stands side on, and when he's throwing that left hand, as we've got into in the past and we'll get into again in this show, he fully extends that left hand as far as he can. So he makes a lot of range up with the length of his arms just by purely utilising his reach to the best of his ability. Whereas on the flip side, you've got Poirier, who his punches tend to be short. He tends to stand much closer, much squarer, throwing power punches. But, you know, I mean, if we look at this, that's why he's got the third highest striking rate in UFC history, because his punches come in flurries. He's not that one-punch knockout finisher like McGregor is. He wears people down. It's a barrage of punches. And, you know, as you can see, it's effective. You know, 10th most wins in UFC history. His style works over the distance, especially into the championship rounds. So, like, if I'm Poirier, I'm taking confidence in him and his fighting style, as long as he can keep his mentality together facing McGregor.
Let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? September 2014 seems like a very different time, particularly when we consider 2020, of course. 178, UFC 178, featherweight division. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, what went down?
Okay, well, I mean, to be honest, the fight kind of started at the face-offs at the press conference, and every opportunity that McGregor had to interact with Poirier before the actual fight started. And you know, and that's very typical of McGregor. You know, even Nate Diaz hinted at it in that famous post-fight speech. He's like, we don't want to see you fight these guys that you've already beaten at the press conference. I kind of felt like that from Poirier going in. And even at the face-off, you saw him reactive to McGregor. But straight away, McGregor comes out, he commands the space as he does with a big wide frame, big long guard, spinning kicks to kind of corral his opponent up against the fence. There was a bit of a feeling out process. But immediately you could tell that McGregor was the one that was winning the psychological battle here. He was trading shots, he was picking shots, but if you watch Poirier in this circumstance here, he's moving away, he's backing up, he's allowing McGregor to push him around the octagon a little bit. And every time Poirier does step in and he maybe throws a low kick, he's not engaging, he's not throwing like he's trying to damage. He's throwing like he's trying to figure out what's going to come at him. And it's much less about an aggressive approach from Poirier, much more about dealing with what he's up against. And right at this point where McGregor lands the finishing shot, I'm just going to pull that back a second. The most important thing, aside from all the technical stuff, is the posture, the look on Poirier's face. Because he, to me, looks uncomfortable here. And as that shot comes over the top, it just clips him across the side of the head. It's a very unusual punch. McGregor prefers his opponents skirting along the octagon so he can punch them into it, across their face, across their chin. Poirier was doing the right things. He was circling in the direction that makes McGregor slightly more uncomfortable, but McGregor was still able to land that left hand, but it just clipped him across the top of the head. It was a really odd punch. It was almost like it took his equilibrium away, and as Poirier landed, the hammer fist that followed it was the thing that really finished it off. You can definitely see his legs go, but as he's landing, he's putting his hands down, so he wasn't completely unconscious. So the follow-up shots were the ones that did it. Now, one thing I will say about Poirier is that in that first sort of 60 to 90 seconds, you see in his posture, he's quite tense. And it seems to me a little bit like when he steps in there, he needs about 90 seconds to kind of warm up and get used to the fact that he's back in the octagon and someone's throwing real live punches at him. Once he's past that point, he starts to warm up and get into the fight a bit, and he quite enjoys himself, and that's when he gets very dangerous, like stepping into range with confidence. But those first 90 seconds when he's quite tense, I feel like it takes much less power on a punch to hurt him because he's so tense. And it just seemed like that punch stung him and took his legs away. That's what he's got to get over this time around, is that